I've got my two collar pieces here. My top collar, or also called it's also called the upper collar. I've fused that piece. Then I also have my under collar, which is not fused. So I'm going to line these up, right side touching right side. The more straight side right here, this is the top of your collar. Right here where it's a little more curved, that's the bottom of your collar. So I'm going to line up my pieces and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch up the side, across the top, and down the other side, all of this 1/4 inch. Again, something to note, when you are pinning these together to sew, you'll be doing this for all of your pieces. You want to match your plaid. So I am matching up these red lines that are showing on the wrong side of my fabric. I'm matching that up with the red lines that are on my top collar. So I am pinning into those lines. That way I know my plaid print is going to continue across the seam where my collar meets at that top edge. So pin all the way around, and we'll sew this at 1/4 inch. Okay, I've sewn 1/4 inch up the edge, around the top, and then down the edge. So next step is to clip your corners so that you don't have bulk in those corners. Now I'm going to take this over to my iron and I'm going to press this seam open as best as I can and get as far into the corners as you can. Okay, I've pressed that seam open, and then now I am going to press both seam allowances over towards the undercollar side. So the undercollar is the one that doesn't have the fusing on it. So press your seam allowance towards the undercollar. Okay, I've pressed my seam allowance down towards my undercollar. Now we want to stitch 1/8 of an inch down from this seam, 1/8 of an inch down, to tack this seam allowance onto our undercollar. We're doing that to help the undercollar roll towards the inside. So with the seam allowance pressed towards your undercollar, you're going to stitch a line that's 1/8 of an inch down from this seam that you just stitched. And you're going through the seams. This new stitch you're going to do is going to go through the seam allowance, and it's also going to go through the undercollar. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, I have understitched my collar, and you're not going to be able to go all the way into the corner. That's okay. Just get as close as you can. So I've gotten as close as I can, but you're not going to be able to get all the way in there. All right, now we're going to turn our collar right side out. Make sure to poke out the corners of your collar so that they're nice and pointy. would take this to my iron and press it down so that it's nice and crisp. Okay, I have pressed my collar. So now you can see, I'm showing you the under collar side where we have done that understitching. That is helping our seam roll towards the inside of our collar, rolling towards the under collar. That understitch right there is what's helping that do that. That way on the body, this is the top collar, this is the under collar that has the understitch showing. When it's on the body, it's gonna wrap around the neck and it's gonna be folded like this around the neck, and this, when it's folded, that way you don't see this seam. That's what the understitch here helps to do, is it rolls that seam inwards towards the under collar so that it doesn't show when the top collar is folding around the neck. Also, just to keep this tacked into place where I want it, I'm gonna go and stitch these together at the bottom. I'm just gonna stitch at 1/4 inch seam allowance just to stitch these two pieces together. Okay, so your collar is done, and we're gonna just set that aside for now, and now we're going to work on attaching our other back yoke piece to our facing pieces.